reading from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? He said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Now, Amen. You may be seated. The greatest command. The greatest command. Today is a unique time in the life of the church. It is a moment that God has provided for his marvelous creation to express the potential stored inside of them. That's you and me. This is the last Sunday of October. October is a unique month. That's when it starts to get cold. The weather changes, fall is upon us. But it's also the month that we recognize that in our midst of those who have suffered from breast cancer, it's a month that we recognize and we pray and we continue to believe and know that God will provide a way for this dreadful disease to be eradicated from our midst, but we need to do our part. Sister Deborah, thank you for your testimony this morning. Amen. It is a powerful testimony, but the greatest thing that God asks us to do, that God dwells inside of this physical being that's us, and we have to take care of this being. Amen. So we come and we find again Jesus being confronted by the Pharisees. Last week we talked about him being confronted by the Sadducees, and they asked him, was it lawful to pay tax to Herod? Whose picture's on this coin? And then we go and we had the Bible study last Wednesday night and we talked about it. But today we come and we find him confronted again in the life of Jesus by the Pharisees. There's a section in between that we didn't talk about, and it's the Sadducees confronted Jesus concerning the resurrection. They didn't believe in the resurrection, but they confronted him. But we come now to deal again with the Sadducees. And guess what they said to him? When the Pharisees heard they had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. So this was an interesting maneuver on the part of those that were looking at Jesus, because Jesus came and he was speaking some truth to them, and one of them, a lawyer. I have a friend that's a lawyer, and I called him yesterday to console him, and I told him, even though he's a lawyer, I loved him, and he just cracked up laughing at me. He was a lawyer. Asked him a question to test him. Questions to test you. Not seeking information, but to test him. Have you ever tried to test Jesus? Oh, go ahead and say no. If you've ever tried to test him, have you ever asked him a question and trying to see how you could justify your position? Ask one of those questions that you really don't want an answer. You got a perceived answer, and it does not matter how you answer the question, you still end up being in trouble. He said, teacher, the Pharisee said, teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? What? Take this whole body of law, hundreds of laws. Take this body of law now. I want you to tell me which one's the greatest. You need to go back and examine Leviticus and all that and find all the laws, and I need you to tell me which one's the greatest. So Jesus says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. With everything you got. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and quoted the scripture to them, and they looked at me and laughed and said, but they left my money out. I said, okay. Love with all your heart, with your soul, and all your mind. And it's quick how we go to that whole thing. But you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. Anybody love the Lord today with all their heart? Doesn't it feel good to love something unrestricted? To love something and you don't have to think about what will happen if it doesn't go the way I want it to go. And I'm vulnerable to this because it's really interesting to love the Lord with all your heart because God promised you something. If you love me, it won't be in vain. The text said, I love the Lord because he first loved me. Anybody realize that God loved you before you loved God? And if he didn't, he said, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with everything you got, and all your mind. All your mind. That's probably a difficult endeavor. You ever think about the things you think about during the day? We sang this song, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Anybody wake up this morning with their mind with their mind on Jesus at all? Did anybody think about him at all? Or were you halfway down the road? Sometimes we are halfway here, and it's happened. We're halfway here, and we are driving down the road, and we get there and say, oh, I'm going to church. I better change my station on my radio. I better put something on that sounds like church to get me in the frame of mind before I get there. Sometimes we are riding down the street and you're looking and you're thinking about someone who cuts you off. Anybody cut you off and you're coming to church on Sunday morning, your response is different than it was Thursday night because you're coming to church this morning. Well, my response is better than somebody for the person that cut you off to cut you off on Sunday morning than on Saturday. Because Saturday you get a whole different response. Jesus said, this is the greatest command. The greatest command is to love God with all you got. You got to love the Lord before you love anybody. If you love your spouse more than you love God, you're in trouble. If you love your house more than you love God, you're in trouble. If you love your car more than you love God, you're in trouble. If you love your money more than you love God, you are in trouble. We are in trouble. Because those things are fleeting. If you love the Congress, if you love the president, if you love anybody more than you love God, you're in trouble. And God got some things for us. He said, if you love me with all your heart, he said, I got the second commandment. He said, the first is that. He said, the second is like it. Oh, the first one, there's this word that keeps popping up. And it's love. L-O-V-E. Love. Love. And the second one, he said, the second one is like you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Look at the person sitting beside you and think, can you hang on? Can you just love them a little bit? Can you love them as much as you love yourself? Now, the person that's sitting beside me, every time somebody asks me that, I always look at them and ask them the question, how much do you love yourself? Because it becomes a difficult thing. If you love me like you love yourself and you don't love yourself, then there's a problem there somewhere. There's a problem. He said that you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So he's saying to us, we ought to love what God has done in our lives. Anybody grateful for what God has done? Anybody read Psalm 139 yet? And it said that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. God made me just the way God wanted me to make. So when I look in the mirror, I have to look in the mirror and say, thank you, Lord. Even if your hair is going away, if your hair is getting gray and you look in the mirror, you don't look like you used to look at 18, you have to say, God, I thank you for taking me through the stages of my life. And where I am right now, I'm grateful for what I am. I'm grateful for what I have. Thank you. Because it didn't have to be that way. Doesn't have to be this way at all. Every once in a while, I go walking. I was walking down the street, and sometimes I lose it, and I'm walking down the street, and I want to run, and my body says, you better not. And I look around, and I see some young person breeze by me, and I'm thinking like, oh, God, and the Lord said, you remember. Remember, you're twice their age. And when you were that age, you were breezing by and somebody was looking at you. And I can remember one of my uncles telling me one day I was doing something, when you're young, you run and you can jump over the front, you can jump over the fence, you can do all kind of things, you can turn somerset. And he looked at me and said, I'm envious. I said, why? He said, one time when I was as dumb as you, I could do the stuff that you were doing. Now that I am older, I can't do the stuff that you're doing, but I'm smart as you are. So I looked at him and it bothered me. What do you call it? Why are you dishing me? Why are you doing me in for that? Why are you talking to me like that? But now I've learned. The older I am, you ought to be smarter as you get older because you've learned a lot of life. I read in a book called EQ, it's emotional quotient. And in the book it says that one of the things you always have to be concerned about before you can do anything with anyone else, you got to know who you are. You have to know who you are. And you mean you have to examine the things that have affected you and caused you to be the way you are, and you have to look at them and determine how do they influence your life. It's called self-awareness. Anybody aware of who you really are? When we become aware of who we really are, and then I realize that I can't be a good Jimmie unless God helps me. I realize my self-awareness, my sufficiency is found in the Lord. And then when I realize that, then I try and do some maintenance on myself. Anybody having self-maintenance? Every once in a while you have to look at yourself and you have to take an inventory of what usually come out of my mouth when I'm confronted with an issue. What comes out of my mouth when I stomp my toe? Don't answer. What comes out of your mouth when someone gets on your case? Don't answer. What happens when you lay your religion down? Somebody really make you angry, so I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to forget about loving the Lord with all my heart and all my soul and all my mind. And I'm going to forget that I don't need to love my neighbor as I do. But sometimes we have to look at myself, and we have to, when you take this inventory and be aware of who you are, we curse people out sometimes because we are so used to cursing ourselves out. We abuse people sometimes because we're so used to abusing ourselves. Jesus gives us this lesson. We have to hang out there a lot. You all come to Bible study Wednesday night, and we hang out there. It said, the greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. And God, anybody realize what great thing God has done in you? You're unique. You're wonderful. I don't care how you feel about yourself. You're unique and you're wonderful. I don't care how you feel about yourself. God has placed incredible potential inside. I don't care how you feel about yourself. God has you looking the way He wants you to look right now. I don't care how you feel about yourself. Wherever you are right now, that's where God will meet you, and that's what you have to work with. You will not get another moment like this moment, never, ever again in your life. For real. I'm truthful. You can't go back and redo the last second. Can't go back and redo the last minute. You can't go back and redo yesterday, but guess what? You can stand on your feet right now. You can put your head around yourself right now and say, Lord, I thank you. I praise your name, Lord, for everything that you've given me. I don't care what the doctor said. I thank you for this moment. I may not be here tomorrow, but I'm here right now. And the ground I'm standing on, I declare holy ground because I'm calling out your name and I'm thanking you and I'm praising you, and that's all I can do right now. And if you see fit to carry me on, you will show me new mercies tomorrow morning when I wake up. Just like you gave me new mercies today. So yes, some things may have encumbered me yesterday, but guess what? They don't have the power to hold me now. They don't have the power to take me out now. Because, Lord, I'm going to forgive everything. I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to ask God that you forgive me, and I can move on. So if you're sitting here in a condition, in a situation today, that you cause for yourself, say, Lord, fix me. Fix me up the way I am. I know you're not going to undo it, but let me make the most out of what I have. And what I have is me. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to love you, Lord. I'm going to love you, Lord. Say, I created me a clean heart. I'm going to love you, Lord. Creating me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. So I can love you with my whole heart. So I can love you with all my soul. So I can love you with everything that I got, oh God. And then everything will be all right. And then he said, this is the second of these two, hang on. He said, of these two commandments, hang all the law. He said, on these two commandments, all the others, that whole basket full of laws you got, that whole book full of laws you got. I have to tell you, all the things that you read, all the books that psychiatrists have written, psychologists have written, all the self-help books. He said, all of them hang on these two things right here. I don't care what you read, and I don't care how you insert. If you do not love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind, and if you got neighbors that you don't like, guess what? Guess what? Somewhere along the way, some ugliness will raise its head. Here's what happens. I like to talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of those things that like unlocking the key, unlocking the lock to life. If you got some stuff in your life that you have not dealt with, deal with it. Somebody that hurt you and you haven't forgiven them, forgive them. If you've done something to yourself and you haven't forgiven yourself for what you did, forgive yourself. Ask the Lord to forgive you and clean your slate and go ahead. Go on and live your life fully. Have an abundant life without any restrictions in it. Because here's what happened. If you buried something in 1950 and decided not to deal with it, guess who has a shovel who's been looking for it? And now he has a metal detector. And it's called, how can I detect that unforgiven sin? You've seen people walk around in the parking lot looking for metal. So just picture this. You got some stuff in your life that you got buried and you think is way out of sight. Here, the devil's got one of those detectors and he's walking along going like this. Okay, let me search Jimmie, and all of a sudden, I found it. But I guess I know where it is, and I'm not going to dig it up until Sunday morning when he's standing in the pulpit. Guess what? I'm sitting here trying to preach, and all of a sudden say, now it's about time. And kick the cover off of it. Here I stand. I could have dealt with it in 1950, but I still got it. And guess what? Sometimes we take pleasure in that. Heard somebody said, I ain't on never can I forgive you for what you done to me. Well, they hurt you once. You just told somebody you were so efficient, so proficient at what you done, I think I'll just let you do it for the rest of my life. Let me see. Anybody get mad? Anybody ever been hit by someone? No, that's not a good one. Anybody loan someone some money and they promised to give it back to you and they didn't? Then they just walk around 15 years later in front of you like, and every time you see them, they walk in front of you, they got a new dress, a new suit on, you think about, you should have gave me my $100 back. You scrutinize them all the way from the shoes to the hat. You ain't so tough, you got my money in your pocket. Can't forgive them, guess what? Reliving it all over again. Best thing to do is write a letter. Say that $100 you borrowed from me in 1976. Don't even talk about the interest that accrued. So I just need to tell you, forget about it. I'm making a gift to you for it. Praise God, I hope it was beneficial for you. If I can do anything else for you except loan you money, don't ever ask me for a loan again, because that's not a good arrangement. I know you won't pay me back, and I have a hard time forgiving the debt. So don't ask me for money. Don't ask me for a loan again. Now, here's the difference. If they come to you in need, and they need something, you need to help them out, but don't loan them money. You want to break up a relationship? Loan someone some money. If there's someone in your life you're tired of, just put it out there. Let them ask you for $20. Give it to them if you're tired of them. It's an easy way to get rid of them. Now give them 30. Say, I'm going to give you 30. You pay me back when you can, and I guarantee you be rid of them every time they see you. Instead of coming down the center aisle of the church, they'll take that side over there. Go in the restaurant. It's funny, sitting at a table with 4 chairs on it. Sitting at the table, you go like, you can come and sit with me, and they remember, I owe him $100. When the meal is over, he's going to think that I'm going to tell him to give the bill to him so he'll pay for it to get my money back. All I'm saying is, now I know that was humorous, but can you think of what God has done in our lives? Amen. There you go. God only asks us, he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. How many people like for folk to smile at them in the morning? How many get good pleasure out of folks saying, good morning, how are you? And then call you by your name. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, the book says, if you greet someone in the morning and say, good morning, how are you this morning, Jimmie? They immediately think, God, I'm important. Anybody heard God call your name today? Amen. You know, he calls it every morning. Sometimes he calls it, the birds tweeting outside the window. Jimmie, 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 Jimmie. Dog barking. All those things, but we become annoyed with some of those things. And then he said to them, he says, on these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. All the law and everything that the prophets ever said on these 2 commandments. So he said, if you want to learn anything in the Bible, anybody know the Lord's Prayer? Wonderful. Anybody know? But it'd be good if we grasp the substance of this. And he said, you shall love the Lord, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. There's no commandment before this one, and there's none greater than this. And he said, and second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I have a question, a quiz. What would happen now if we loved our neighbor as we love ourselves? Just supposing that was a virus, it would go viral, like on the internet, and go all the way from, you could start and it go all the way and it would just hit the swamp in Washington. And it would touch everybody. And then that would be almost as frightening to me, because the way some of us love ourselves, and when they determine that I'm going to love you the way I love myself, that could be a difficult thing, but there has to be a standard about it. It says you ought to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind. If you do that, if I can run into you and you do that, then I know if you love me the way you love yourself, I'm going to be all right. I don't know if it's possible to love God without loving yourself. I don't know if you can love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind without it having some wonderful effect upon your life. Yesterday I was with some friends of mine, and we had this conversation, and the person asked me this really interesting question about how in the world have you been married to Sister Wafer for 31 years? Then I jokingly, sitting in the barber chair, looked at him and said, you haven't seen my wife, have you? And my barber, that's why I got a plug in my head. He laughed, and I said, it takes something. How do you love? You know you have to make a commitment to love the Lord. Amen. You got to put some energy in it. Yes, you do. You have to put some energy in it. Then you got to give something. And then you got to be receptive of something. So as we were sitting having this conversation, I was riding home and I was thinking about it. What's the value in having another person in your life that gets on your nerves sometimes? That lift you up sometimes, that know more about you than you know about yourself, and will tell you about yourself. When you think you're looking good, she said, that tie don't go with that suit. If you go out here looking like this today. When you're running around and say, oh, I'm not going to get a haircut, you need to get a haircut. You know, sometimes it don't shave. Like, you know, you look a whole lot better when you shave. And that's what the Bible does for us. When we read it, you know, it said the attitude you have is nasty. You ought to get rid of it. So I'm sitting here going like, that's what a person in your life go. I say, if you can give to this person and realize if you can help this person be, oh, help me, Lord. If you can help this person be the best person that they can be, then you will receive incredible dividends. The young brother jumped up and said, hallelujah. He looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, if she becomes the greatest person she can be, think what you have on your hands. How would you like to have the greatest helper in the world? And how do you get them? You help them become, because she's going to help you be all that you can be. Amen. Every time I know, I tell my wife all the time, you know, they just asked me over there because of you. Because it had not been for your influence in my life, I wouldn't be ready to go over there. They wouldn't want to see me. And you ought to do that with Jesus. Anybody know if it hadn't been for the influence of Jesus in your life, there'd be a whole lot of places that you wouldn't be ready to go. People just look at you and light up when you come walking in the room because they know Reverend Chapman got a prayer that will set you on fire. When Reverend Davis walk in, they know he got a good word to say for them. When you walk in the room, Sister Reverend walk in the room, you got a song for them. When you walk in the room, they know that you love something more than you love yourself, and you love God, and you love God. That's out of the realm. That's encompassing of everything. But you know that they know that you're not going to put them second. That you're important. And Jesus said, all these hang on that. And so when the Pharisees looked at him, they were always trying to get him. And Jesus looked at him and go like, of all that you know, of all that you know, how much do you love the Lord? Excuse me. Of all that you know, how much do you love the Lord? And look and say, I know I love the Lord. And every time we say that, you know what God said? Good. Show me. Excuse me. The Lord is the best thing ever happened to me.
With my mouth I speak to you, with my heart I sing to you, with my soul I'll give to you all of the praise. I say thank you for everything, for all the things you've done, for the battles you fought for me, for the victories won. With my mouth, with my heart, with my soul, I'll give you all